I was wondering about trying to foster curiosity or generate it by introducing a question such as a Zen question, what's this, versus allowing it to arise on its own.
Well, I think we generate real curiosity. I think that our curiosity is actually there from the very beginning. In other words, the first thing I ask anybody generally when they talk, the first time they talk to me is, so why are you doing this? Why? People come to retreat on me, and almost the first night, I almost always say the same thing. So why are you here? Something very powerful drove you here, a lot of time, taken out, expense, all the rest. And so it's not so much that you cultivate a kind of curiosity in the sense of trying to make yourself curious about something you may or may not actually be curious about. I think a lot of in the sense that I'm using the word curiosity, it's its own kind of contemplation in the sense of again, to use these words exactly and precisely, because this is the key. Exactly and precisely, why do I do this? What's the drive? What am I looking for? What am I wanting? What am I being compelled by? When you start to feel into that and can start to identify that for yourself, that will define your curiosity right there. See, true curiosity, we can't necessarily go in and make it up. When the Buddha wondered, by God, is there any kind of resolution to this suffering that everybody seems to be, living out in their lives? Is there any end to this? Is there any resolution to this? That was his curiosity. That was his question. I don't know that he could have just sat there and thought, well, I'm supposed to be curious, and let me see, I think I'll be curious about why they're suffering. You get the feeling it's a totally different sort of feeling, one way or the other. One way is a curiosity that you can't ignore. The other one is when you're trying to be curious. So what I'm interested in is that thing that you find really hard to ignore, the thing that's actually driving even to participate in this program, to do your spiritual life in general. There's always something that's there that's actually moving it forward. And to connect with that is to connect, almost always there's some sort of question. There's always some sort of unresolved, deep existential issue that's driving this aspect of our lives. So sometimes part of the curiosity is to wonder, like, what's this all about for me anyway? What am I doing? Why am I doing it? Exactly and precisely, what am I looking for? You get the feel?
Yeah.
Because otherwise, I know that people would ask my teacher this when I was, studying with her for all these years, and they would say, well, why don't you give me a Zen koan or something? That sort of seemed really romantic and cool. And, and she'd say, well, okay, tell me which one you're interested in. Well, I don't really know. And then she'd say, well, your life is your koan, right? You came here before you even heard it. You're not born hearing of koans and stuff. Like what compels you here, as she would say, your own life will spit up plenty of koans for you, plenty of unanswered questions and riddles. The truest ones come out of our lives, which is where all these Zen koans came from anyway. Somebody at some point had a question, asked some teacher, and boom, it got made into a story. So what's it all about for you?
When I meditate, I really am motivated to look into the nature of my existence. And
okay.
When I relax into awareness, I can at times it can feel blissful, but sometimes there's a sense of curiosity there, a strong sense, and other times it's flat.
Yeah, I understand. Because curiosity is like that. It does kind of wave, right? Mm-hmm. It undulates. Sometimes it's really powerful, sometimes not as much, like everything else in life. So that's kind of, natural. But let me just take what you just gave me. Curious about, my own, I forgot the word you use, your own existence, something like that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. If you really, so you take that and if you start to work with it in a precise way, and you start to notice, okay, yeah, like you said, I can go into meditation. Sometimes I can get into a really nice state of bliss, or, it can be really, really, really pleasant. That tells me what I'm experiencing. It doesn't tell me what I am. And whatever I am, whatever it is that I am, whatever it is that's at the baseline of my own existence, whatever that is, it's there when I'm really feeling wonderful and blissful. It's there. I am the same reality, whatever the reality of my existence is. It's the same when I'm miserable, when I'm bored, when I'm blissed, when I'm happy, when I'm sad. In other words, if you really start to notice, you realize whatever it is that I am is there in every single experience. All of them. Bliss and misery. Then I think the mystery starts to heighten, right? Well, whatever I am is right here in every single experience, every single perception. Whatever I am is right here. Now, as you know, the more you look into that, or what is that I am, the more you don't find it as a discrete, separate thing, right? Where is it? What is it? And this starts to help you sort of transcend the grasping or giving significance to certain experiences over others. When it comes to your existence, you are, no matter what you're experiencing, no matter what you're feeling, you exist. So what is it that's there, that exists in every single experience? And is it even a something? And is it a someone? And is it even something you can point to? You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to tap into your curiosity and then try to expand it, to go yeah, see, if you're interested in this, then there's all this way that you work with that curiosity. You just stay with it, you stay true to it, but you really start to examine, this is the thing about when you get it out of simply being a goal-oriented activity. I want to know the truth of my being, the truth of my existence. Okay, that's fine. We all have whatever that goal is for as long as it's there. And that's rightly so. There's also simultaneously a way of working with it, which you want to know that, but you're not just sitting around waiting for something to happen that's going to resolve that for you, but you're actively engaged in the mystery of your own existence, of knowing that you are, in every conscious moment, knowing that you are, and yet not being able to find yourself in a discrete, separate place, in one place as opposed to another, but you are. That weird paradox, at a certain point you realize, I'm here, but I can't find myself anywhere. But I'm here. Or as people have said to me when they're looking into it, they'll say, I don't know who I am, but whoever I am is here. Now, what can be more ridiculous than that? Yeah. But what's ridiculous, you can either see it as simply ridiculous, or you can go, that's actually, can itself draw you into a state of sort of wonderment. What an odd thing it is that you and I are. What a strange and mysterious thing. When we really begin to look at it and get sort of precise, we start to see, my God, I am, but I can't find the darn thing anywhere. And still I am. And it's like Now that becomes something you just sort of feel your way into. That's one of the important things or useful things. It's useful to know how to work with our curiosity, how to work with our question. It's like you pose the question or you pose whatever you're investigating in. You look at it and then you just sort of let it go. You just let it go into the stillness. It's almost like dropping a pebble on the top of a very deep lake. It just sinks into you. And you just let it go. And then when the curiosity reemerges, you look at it again. And then you let it go. And this rhythm develops between posing the question, which you have to use your mind or the curiosity, and then observing where it takes you, and then letting it go. And then it will come back after a while. After a while could mean 30 seconds later. It may not come back for 3 days. Who knows? But then you're kind of working with this in a meditative way, but more important than a meditative way, you're working it in a way where your question is actually engaging you in a more immediate, deeper state of being. Because that's what the curiosity does. It pulls you into a deeper state of being. Whether you recognize that initially or not, it's pulling you into a deeper state of being. And that's what it's supposed to do. Does that help a little bit, Dave?
No, that's very helpful because it seems that it's a great way to get them to work together, versus... Yeah. I think in my mind there was a little bit of seeing them as kind of a little bit in conflict, like efforting to be curious versus, resting as awareness.
Right. I understand that totally. I've gotten a number of questions. I've tried to respond to those on the emails, but I absolutely understand the question because, at least in my book, you can't say, well, you're always supposed to ask a question, or you're just supposed to abide as awareness and never ask a question. It doesn't work. We are much more dynamic and unique than that. When you have a question, by God, engage in it. And because you can do that in a very meditative and quiet way. And if you don't have a question, first of all, take the time to wonder and get clear about exactly why you're doing what you're doing and what you're hoping, because sometimes your question will come out of that. But even when you've done that, there are those times, like everything is rhythmical in life. Sometimes the question, it just falls away, and then you're just being, right? And there isn't a question. There doesn't need to be a question. It's like that's what's, you kind of follow your own rhythm in that sense.
No, that's really helpful because a lot of times I feel like maybe I'm lacking discipline if I'm not introducing the question at a regular interval.
Yeah, and you'll get different responses from. I know, and some Zen teachers would say just the opposite. They would say, focus on that question and repeat it to yourself 24 hours a day, even in the middle of your sleep if you can.
Yeah.
And that's I understand that. That's great, and that's fine if you have a question that you're actually that interested in. See, because there's Zen students all over the place, lots of them asking questions or working on koans, but if they're not really incredibly invested in the koan or in the question, they can ask it 24 hours a day for 20, 30, 40 years. Nothing happens. You have to be invested. You have to want to care. You have to really want to know. Then the question has vitality. And what I found, if you really, really want to know, then you can follow the rhythm of your question. You can follow your own rhythm because there's nothing phony in it then, right? You're not going, I'm just working on this question because if I crack it, I'll find enlightenment, It's like, well, okay, that's great, but, there has to be a deeper thing. I mean, after all, what's enlightenment anyway, right? It's going to be to penetrate into some fundamental issue. Yeah. So I would feel fine about following your own rhythm, but whichever way that you feel called or sometimes compelled at any given moment, Just give yourself to it either way, with or without a question. It's the ability to throw yourself into it that's really the most important thing.
No, and your comment earlier about not being too formulaic came to mind.
Yeah.
And the main reason I ask is because when I am curious, it just, and this is a poor word, but it seems to be so much more productive.
Yeah, that's a great word to put it is.
And,
you're right.
Versus kind of blissing out. And, it's, I don't know, I'll still put it besides, it just seems like, when you're curious and actively being curious or it arising on its own.
And it keeps you honest. You know what I mean? Because, as human beings, we all have this tendency, when we start to feel really, really good, we often tend to become uninterested in whatever question we have. And it's like, don't bother me. I feel great. When you're suffering, boy, does your question come back. Sometimes people think, I must be really getting close because I'm not suffering at all. Well, maybe not, Because when we're suffering, boy, do we start to pay attention. But when you really connect with your curiosity, when it's there, when you really connect with it, then you're curious whether you feel great or you feel terrible. It's just there. It's part of you. You can't get away from it. Yeah. All right, my friend.